I had this thought today that for us to fix it, for us to get to a point where society functions the way most reasonable people think it should function, nobody knows all the details and perfection of it, but people should try and do the right thing. People should view each other as equal, equally as important, equally as relevant. People should not cause unnecessary suffering just for their own benefit, right? If the math clearly doesn't check out, you should never do that because you truly care about other people and you want society and the systems within it to function in a way that is just fair, that just is any reasonable person will look at it and say, yeah, that's fair. But even as I say that, there's a struggle. There's a problem. The problem is that subjectivity. That reasonable person would say that's fair. I can't quite articulate what exactly it should be because it starts to get real fuzzy on the edges, but it should be fair. We most of us know that is right, but what does it mean? What does it look like? I think it might look like everybody, and I think I literally mean everybody, has to be a philosopher king. And I'm maybe using that phrase in my own looser term, but everybody has to get it right. Everybody. And why? So there's two main reasons why everybody needs to be a philosopher king. The first is for there to be ambition, drive, motivation, there needs to be a benefit to it. There needs to be a reason to do it, right? It's the same old argument of capitalism over communism or socialism, right? You don't want everybody to be equal and just be stuck being equal because then there'll be no growth. We'll play that out. Even in, let's say we could snap our fingers and get this magical utopia, somebody's making decisions. Somebody has power. And I say that power because that's ultimately what I think as humans we crave very deeply. A lot of people believe this. I think one of our natural base primal instincts is to crave power for our own protection and safety and the ability to kind of perpetuate our species and all that. Like that's ingrained in us. So somebody's going to be making decisions. Somebody's going to have power. You have to trust that every single person that has that power in whatever situation, system, structure they're in is not going to do the seemingly instinctual thing, maybe not for everybody, but seemingly for a lot of people, the instinctual thing, which is to protect that power, to exploit that power in some way, to use it to your advantage. Because frankly, what is the benefit of power if it doesn't give you an advantage or some benefit in some way, right? Now that's a deeply philosophical question. A more enlightened view might be that power means you care for everybody else. You use that power for the betterment of all. Well, now again, we're talking about the philosopher king. So if that's the power we want to be exhibited, because there will be power, everybody needs to be the philosopher king. If one person recognizes, I like this power, I want to keep it just for me, I'm willing to sacrifice other people to do that, that person can break the whole system. Because that person can start to gain their benefits and consolidate power in a way in which now it's all about their benefits. And I think we've seen that movie before, various times throughout human history in all different societies and places, cultures. That's what happens. Somebody gets power, they exploit it. So you need philosopher kings to protect against that. That's the mentality that stops against that. That's that enlightened view that says, I know I could do that, but that's not actually the right thing to do. That's not actually the beneficial thing to do. Second reason you need philosopher kings. On the other side of that power dynamic, you have people that are being exploited. That's true. Absolutely, that happens. That's human nature. That's what we just talked about. Another part of human nature, though, is we'd rather pleasure than discomfort. Provocative statement, maybe, but that's just the truth. We'd all rather be happy rather than sad. We'd rather enjoy something rather than not. That doesn't mean we're not willing to go through discomfort to find pleasure, right? And maybe even you get some pleasure in discomfort, but the root of it is still pleasure. It's still some good feeling. That's our human nature to want that. So that leads to situations sometimes where we, myself very much included, if we start to feel some discomfort, if there's things that we don't love, it's very easy to convince ourselves that those things are bad and they need to change because we don't want to deal with those things. And then sometimes that happens even when it's one of those things that's going to benefit you, right? We know we should eat better. We know we should work out more. We know we should go back to school and take classes or quit some, whatever it is, right? Whatever the thing is that we know we should do, but it's going to take some discomfort and we don't want that discomfort. So is there an easier way? Is there an easy way? Is there a pill? Is there a surgery? Is there, can I pay to get something better so I don't actually have to pass the test and somebody will pass it for me and I can just jump ahead, do what I want? Like, right, that mentality. We don't want the discomfort. It's just ingrained in us. Why is that relevant to the philosopher king and the ideal society? Because as we try and make this fair, how we define fair becomes very important. And everybody's going to have a different view on that. And inevitably, there's going to be some people, doesn't matter their gender, race, creed, ethnicity, any of that, because they're humans. So they're good. Some of them are going to do this. I might be one of the people that does this. Who knows? Anybody could. When they start looking at what's fair and how should the system be set up, they're naturally going to maybe feel like, that I don't love, even though maybe it's the right thing. Maybe it's just what anybody should have to go through or do, but they're going to say, I don't like that. Let's make that better. Let's fix that. Let's make it where I don't have to go through that discomfort. That happening, even in little doses, little bits and pieces where different people feel like, that discomfort, I don't like, I don't want it. It's that same philosopher king mindset. We have to understand and have that perspective, that wisdom, that enlightenment to recognize, yeah, my natural human inclination is pulling me to say I don't like this and it's not fair, right? I'm convincing myself of that. But I know that's not true. I know it's something that I just don't like. I know it's something that you just have to go through in life. I know it's something that, if I worked harder, I could achieve it. Those things, we have to get that right every time. That philosopher king mentality to recognize that, catch it, and say, no, I'm going to do what's right for the greater good. And at the end of the day, both sides of that coin, the power side and that kind of weakness against discomfort, it comes back to the same thing. It's us. It's being selfish. It's me first. It's I want the power because it helps me, or I want to avoid the discomfort because it doesn't make me feel good. And a lot of us like to make pretend that dynamic doesn't exist, that aspect of human nature, but it does. And we'd be fools to ignore that. We need to understand it if we're going to be better than it. Figure out how to get around that or work through it. And on a cynical note, to end the video, my concern is I don't think it's realistic to ever have a society literally full of philosopher kings and queens, or whatever term you want to use for this. And if we don't, based on this kind of logic, it's hard to see it all working the way it's supposed to work or the way we hope it would work.